If you're a man and your business is going great and you have an okay relationship with your wife, but she's handling all the stuff with the kids, you're not leading. You're maybe leading your business well, but you are not mentoring and discipling your family well. And the best way to get mentorship and discipleship, if you're at a good Bible believing church and they have good elders and deacons, you will notice men that do this well. Go ask them.
This is the Iron Deep Podcast. Brett Snodgrass, co-host Michael Stansberry on the air with me today. Michael, what's up, man?
Yes, sir. How are you, Mr. Snodgrass?
Doing well. Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
I love your shiny head.
Yeah, well, it's I used beef tallow.
Nice. I love that. Man, I'm super excited to be on this particular episode. And if you guys have been tuning in, we're actually doing a series on stewardship. And the definition of stewardship is really, I'm not reading this from a dictionary or anything like that, but it's really just taking care. If someone gives you something, how are you taking care of that? And we believe that the Lord has given us all the blessings, everything that we have, money, relationships, family, our businesses, wisdom, designed us just amazing things. Everything is his. And what are we doing with it? Are we doing well? Or are we kind of wasting it away? So we're talking about stewardship. We've talked about on past episodes, finances. How do you steward your finances? How do you steward your time? We just got off of how to stewardship. How are you stewarding your business? What does that look like for the glory of Christ, right? And today we're going to be talking about stewarding relationships. And this is obviously, to my heart, I'm a huge relational person that I love relationships. I love going deep relationships. I love pouring into other people, that mentorship, discipleship, building relationships, just the presence of people. I think is just amazing that literally God designed us to be around people and have relationships with people and have that relationship with him. And how are we stewarding our relationships around us? And we're going to be diving into that today. Before we start digging in fully, I want to just kind of mention too that go over to our website, irondeep.com. We got amazing things coming up. Obviously, this podcast is on there. We got a men's awakening retreat coming up in September, the 22nd through the 25th. It's a amazing event for people that really want to build a deep relationship with God and each other. That's really what it's all about. So love to see you guys there. You can register on the website. I love to chat with you about that. Also, if you haven't read the book, The Secret War Within, just put that plug out there. I did write that. It took 2 years of my life pouring my heart and soul into that particular book. Had a lot of great feedback from it. So check that out on the website as well. So relationships, Michael, stewarding relationships. I've had you on the previous podcast. We've talked about your family life, your close relationships life. And I just think, from a family point of view, I think that you do very, very well. I kind of look up to you and it's like, wow, that he just feels like he has such a connection with his relationships, especially when it comes to your family. So when I talk about God giving you these people in your life and you stewarding them, can you kind of kick us off to what that looks like in your own life and what that means to you?
Well, you see the highlights. Let's be honest about that. So those are the things. Is again everything we put out there in the ether space. Is we're not going to try and make us point us into a negative light. So, but here the effort is into steward a great relationship and just steward the stewardship of making sure that you have a good relationship, especially obviously with your nuclear family, with your kids and your wife. And I can tell you that I've not been the best at it. I feel like that I'm getting better. It's one of those things we'll talk about. Like anytime I've heard this from multiple um, different sources, is that when a pastor is talking to a couple and they ask the husband and the wife to rate the relationship, the husband's always going to be like, yeah, we're about an 9, and the wife's going to be like a 2. And I can say that has been my life for a while. If my wife asked me to do that, that's kind of what's happening. So, but the overall the overall thing is like we know the real temperature, and the real temperature is not the 8, not the 9. And it may not be the 2 either, but it ain't we're not on the same page. And
Mhm.
so the most important thing to build relationship with people is make sure you're on the same page. And that also has to deal with um, conflict resolution. We're not
Mm.
People are not good at conflict resolution. I don't know if you know this, but if you stick to the scriptural references on how to resolve conflict, um, then you'll resolve it. You'll resolve it. And so the scripture that you have on here is, "I give you love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." And the other thing is you got to love other people more than yourself. We live in a
Mm.
culture that says it's all about me, YOLO. You do you. Um, I
I
tell you,
never heard that.
the you do you. You never.
No.
Oh, so
Uh-uh.
I'll give credit to my wife, Deidre. She's very, when she heard, so this is an argument that when you're having a conversation with people and they have a particular belief about something, and somebody's like, "Well, I don't agree with you, but you do you," and that's a way to not have conflict. That's a way to just push it away instead of
Gotcha.
going, "Yeah, I'm curious. Why do you think that way?"
Mm.
It's kind of the antithesis of that. And so, being curious in any relationship, trying to get to the heart of the matter where the conflict is.
Mhm.
I can tell you right now, even bubbling up here, we're talking about these relationships. I'm thinking about some things with my kids and my wife that I need to resolve, because that's
Mhm.
what loving one another is like making sure that you're on the same sheet of music, and you're doing things, especially as a father, you want to lead in that respect.
Mhm.
Um, I've been in the position where one of my kids comes to me and they've asked for forgiveness for something, and I'm first of all, I'm blown away, but then my heart is melted, and then I'm like, okay, what did I do something? And then I'm all
Mhm.
automatically in that mode of kind of how did I react in this situation? Did I do it?
Mhm.
Did I did I did I do it right?
Mhm.
Or where did I fall? Um, because as parents of kids, to steward that relationship, it's most important that when we mess up, we don't say, "Well, we're the parent. We don't need to. We don't want to talk about that. We don't need to. We're just going to push that away." Um, kids know, when you do wrong, and they want to hear it. It's beneficial for them to hear things, and for you to apologize. It's not just beneficial, it's critical that you do that
Mhm.
for their development. Because what do we want from our kids when they mess up? We want them to repent. They want them to ask for forgiveness. If they see that you're stubborn and that uh, you're like every character in the Bible, you're just like, I'm going to be obstinate, and I'm just going to be on my high horse here because I'm the dad, and what I say goes. They're going to see that and go, okay, I can. Then I'll do that. I'll do that. So I think that's important in steward their relationship with the family is when you need
Mhm.
to ask for forgiveness, do that. Get to it. Keep short accounts.
I love that. I love that. I call it a don't be a war historian. I used to do that a lot with my relationships. That whenever I'd get in an argument or conflict with someone, that we'd bring up a bunch of history of all the arguments, right? Like remember 5 years ago when you stole, whatever. You can't be the war historian on there. And family is it can be challenging, and I've said this before that my most challenging area of my life, I believe, is pouring into my family. I think you see a lot of that with the Bible, and I'm not sure if it's just my own selfishness or sin, and sometimes it's the familiarity complex that I even talked about this with some of the teens that I'm mentoring, is that we have this familiarity complex, like that we're so familiar with someone like our family that we lose appreciation, we lose respect for them because we're just so close to them. And I think that happens a lot with families, and that's somewhat with the brokenness. We think we want this exciting new thing, and we leave the familiarity. But it can, but that is, the wrong way to go. That we can, pour into our families. And what does that look like? Michael, you talked about this a little bit. I wrote down that you have to have connection before correction. I think as a dad, we're always trying to correct and have our kids be perfect. Even our wives, we're saying, I wish you were this way, or I wish you wouldn't do that, and don't behave like that. And we're trying to correct them and have them behave in a certain way without the connection. And I think the question would go back, when's the last time you really sat down and connected with them at their level, at their heart level? When's the last time, are you shepherding their heart, or are you shepherding their behavior? And I think that's something that I don't do the best. And I'm always trying to have them behave perfectly in a certain way, because that's the way I want my family to be, to look like we're cool and perfect. But am I willing to take the time to connect with them? You have to have a connection over correction. Michael, you talk about this, and I'm working on this too, is that conflict resolution stuff, especially with your family, like with my wife. Do we have a safe space to do that? Sometimes it's hard because we don't have that space, and we try to fix something, or talk about something maybe when it's not the right space. It's like, oh, I'm heading out the door, oh, I want to talk about this big thing, that we need to talk about. But maybe my wife, we haven't done this in a while, but we used to have kind of like a listening chair, like, hey, every night we'd sit down, and this is our space. Do we need to talk about anything? This is a space to bring it up. This is a space, if we need to talk about it, doesn't have to be this big challenge and conflict either. It could be an encouragement. And that's just something that I wrote down. Um, so yeah, that's just some of the stuff that's awesome. So family can be challenging. Are you stewarding it well? And again, this is it's
On some
it,
days, no.
yeah.
On on some days, no. And sometimes, yes. And so there's, and again, one of the rhythms of this is, um, the course correction that we have in the Bible is just a beautiful thing. We know that, we can go back when we do something dumb. I'm gonna put myself out there. I I've become an old man, and I shouldn't let the old man in. But at about 9:30, my brain is, like, worthless, and at that exact time, my wife becomes, an Albert
she's,
Einstein. Like,
she's
she's
lively.
lighted up, and we can talk. It's really good to talk. Actually, one thing that's really cool is that we've been having coffee together. We need to do it more and be more intentional. I've been, but I actually miss it because I've been sick for a couple days. But when there's their connection there and we can talk about things and I can listen and be in and not have the phone, the computer, the distractions, and just sit there. It's great for both of us. It's not just good for your wife. You need to talk to your wife, men. You do, and I need to listen. This is I'm talking to myself more as well as you guys. Is we need to share and get as much time in there as possible. It is going to be difficult through different seasons of life, but it's most important that you do that. But I will say this, that when you ask, am I stewarding well? I go to the negative. I go, oh, I know areas where I need to really ratchet it up, completely ratchet it up, because I'm focusing on the behavior. I think the first thing I did a couple days ago is my 15-year-old son came down, and it's summertime, and there's this lull in between all these camps and stuff. And so there's been 3 days, and I just hadn't seen any activity from him. I'm like, hey, are you doing your chores? Are you out there doing your work?
Mhm.
Can you go out there and get some stuff done? It was the first thing I said to him, because my whole thing is like, I don't want to raise a lazy kid.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like, and and I got course corrected by my bride, and she looked at me and was like, "That's the first thing you're gonna say to him?"
Mm,
And I'm
mm.
like, she's like, Get out of here, you grumpy old man." She didn't say that, but I could see it, and I was like, "Oh," and I felt terrible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but so the answer is I'm doing doing better, but no, there's a lot of work there that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Um, and 'cause but here in my mind at first, it's like, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna make sure that kid's, not just sitting there just being lazy for 3 days, sleep until 10 a.m. because it's summertime." Meanwhile, at his age, I was the laziest. I was a latchkey kid.
Right.
There was n I had no res the only responsibility I had to was, like, to eat Chips Ahoy. That was it. Mom brought home Chips Ahoy, I was gonna eat a sleeve of those things.
Right. That's awesome. No, I love that. I'm the same way. And and again, I heard this the other day that I'm part of this again Iron Deep group, and one guy says he stopped saying to his kids like "I'm proud of you." Instead, he said, "I'm just pleased with you." And I don't know, just something like that. Kind of just kind of hit me a little bit different, and so I started using that with my kids. Like, hey, it's not about what you do or what you achieve, because I think that's, when we're proud of our son or our daughter, a lot of times it comes at I'm proud of you for accomplishing this thing, or I'm not. And this is more of just, "Hey, I'm pleased with you." What did the Father say to Jesus? Is I'm well pleased, right? I'm pleased with you. So that's just something I've been starting to do. I don't know if it hits anyone, but just using some of those words. Let's Family is obviously super important. Friendship. Let's talk about stewarding friends, stewarding community. There's been studies that men have no friends. Men don't have any friends. I've went through much of seasons of my life. I'm so obsessed and focused on achieving success or business. I have no friends, or my friends are the ones that I pay, right? I pay for my friends because they're on my payroll. Um, or I might have acquaintances, guys that I can talk about business stuff with, or like, "Hey, what marketing tools are you using?" But I don't have guys that I can talk about some of the inner things that I've struggled with, some of the sins in my own life, or doesn't have to be that, or guys that I can truly celebrate with, the guys that I can say, "Man, I just did this big deal," and I don't have to feel guilty about talking about it, because they're gonna celebrate it, and I'm gonna celebrate them as well. So obviously, this is where Iron Deep comes in to play. One of the huge reasons why it was even formed was from Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, as one person sharpens another. That I started to look around even in my own life, and I don't have a lot of deep relationships. I have a lot of shallowness, and um, I think the world is just becoming more and more shallow, and we're losing the depth. We're losing, number one, the depth of that personal relationship with Christ. A lot of that is just becoming shallow, and we're losing a lot of the depth of our relationships with other people, other men, other couples. So that's just something that's just kind of coming to mind. Uh, is I've tried to just be more intentional about that. Just building rhythms in my life. Rhythms, I think, are really important to me, because I think that if I don't have certain rhythms of maybe meeting with certain people, that not intentional, but sometimes I lose some of the consistency, that I forget to reach out. Some people I do, but those are just important to me. Like, hey, let's meet this rhythm every so often, or couples, or whatever that looks like. That's just been really important to me, is something I've been trying to do. So what about you, Michael? Friendships, community, what kind of comes to mind as you steward that well, that the Lord has blessed you with?
Well, so I would, I've fixed it in my mind. This is just me and how I work on this personality. I said I'm going to have these relationships with guys, and I've got these text threads with friends and things like that. But I'm not going to ever. And this is more, I think, a personality trait. I don't think this is something that you can say I want that, but I don't. If somebody's not texting me, I don't let it bother me. But I'm going to text them. I'm going to listen. I'm trying to elicit response. I'm going to try and connect with them, and then because there's so many people out there, Brett, you nailed it. That just don't know how to make a connection with another male that does. Because well, for whatever reason. And so I try to make the connection, and what I do is it's like I go fishing, right?
Mhm.
And then I've got a couple friends that I regularly text, and we text back, and I try to steward the friendship that way. That if I hadn't heard from them in a while, I'm not going to ignore the fact that because they're more likely not to text me. If I
Mhm.
text them, my whole thing is like, yeah, I want to check on them. I want to elicit response. I'm not going to get butt hurt if they don't do the same for me. So that's the
Mhm.
personality trait. Like I don't care if it's not reciprocated,
Mhm.
because and that's how I have to. It is they do reciprocate it, but I'm not going to care that it does.
Mhm.
But I
And I
I
think we
don't
can
know if
get
it's, you know.
yeah, I think
Go
we
ahead.
can get hurt that time because my wife and I have even had that conversation. Like I'm kind of like you that it doesn't bother me as much, but a lot of people don't reach out to us and my wife. I think it hurts her more. Like, hey, like we always have to be the
Yes.
instigator of that relationship. Do you want to do this? And when someone does do it, how do we even respond to it? Like, are we, yeah, let's do it, or are we like, no, we're busy. How are we responding to it? But I'm kind of like you that a lot of people do get, why should I put in the effort when they're not going to put in the effort? And I hear that a lot, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
it doesn't. I would say that remove that from your, modus operandi, because, we've said we're gonna be the family that has people over. We're gonna be the family where our kids have people over, and we like, dude, this summer has been crazy with the amount of people that we had over, and there was 3 days where nobody came over, and it was very peaceful and nice. It's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, but what are we what are we supposed to be doing?"
Yeah, you
And,
miss them.
well,
You miss the
um,
noise.
but but it is thing but again, so if you start from that, like, most people don't do s they just don't do they're in their own little world, and, drawing them out is great. But when you do get some couple friends that are cool to hang out and have fun, we actually, full disclosure, we have found a great group of couples, not from our church, but from our daughter's gymnastics, and they're
Hmm.
all good, outstanding people. So find it wherever you find it, and then
Mhm.
develop it. And what's cool is not because of the relationships that we have. My daughter asked those girls to go to church, and now we have these
Mhm.
couples from gymnastics coming to our church and hanging out with
Wow.
us, and that's there it is. That's what you do when you have friendships and within your community, and you end up asking them to go to church, and now there are gymnastics and our church friends, which
Mhm.
is really cool. They're actually going
That's
to be
awesome.
here. We got this thing on Saturday, and that we're excited about. We get jazzed about that.
That's cool. No, that's awesome. I love that. That's so cool. And I think it's just the thing. Like, are we all waking up intentional with our relationships? I know that I'm waking up and I'm intentional about my business most of the time. I'm intentional about um, moving that needle forward and hitting some goals with my whatever workouts. Are you intentional with your relationships? Are you thinking about it? And are you pouring into that? Because I know for me, when I do reach out, and I didn't even know I needed it, but when I do reach out and I do have that conversation, whether it's a friend or even my wife, that I know that even after that conversation, like, man, I really needed that. Like that was good. That was really, really impactful thing for me. And for example, one of the guys reached out and we had a triple date uh, a week or so ago, and it was awesome. We did some top golf, and we don't do a lot of stuff like that, but that was just really cool to get the wives together, and it was just really impactful for me. Um, just to do things like that, just a fun. Michael, let's talk about the last thing. And so we've talked about family, we talked about friends, community. Let's talk about mentorship, discipleship. This comes with the heart of Christ that he says, go and make disciples, mentor people, teach them the ways that I taught you. Um, in Second Timothy, it says, "And these things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, and trust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others." And he calls us to, if you believe and you study, and he has impacted your life and your following, to go out and to disciple, to mentor. And this is just something that's been lost many times, that it kind of comes back to that we rely on the schools to educate our kids, we rely on the church to disciple them, when it's our job. Like, we are the church, right? So are we, number one, discipling and mentoring our own children and our families, but are we also going out and we're being the Paul he was to Timothy, in that discipleship, in that mentorship? Talk about that a little bit. It's just very important.
Yeah, well, in the family unit, it is, in the Bible, it says the man is the head of the household. It doesn't ask it doesn't say, "Is the man the head of the household?" It says he is the head of the household. And so as the head of the household, your job is to teach and to train and to lead. And if you don't do those things, guess what? You're still the head of the household. And so everything falls on the man. So this is the hardest part. It's like, no, well, me and my wife are in this 50-50, or we're in this 100-100. Actually, if you look at scripture, it all falls on the man.
Mm,
Yeah, and this is what did Adam, Eve sinned, right? But why? Because Adam didn't do his job as head of the
mm,
household and beat that
mhm,
snake to death. And
mhm,
so he could have done this. He could have stood up to his wife, because this is one of the things you have to understand about a man that will not stand up to his wife will never stand up for his wife. So he needed to stand up to his wife and said, "No, Eve, this is not good. You can't do this." And he should have taken that apple and and done away with it and killed the snake.
mhm,
And so our job is to lead and to teach and to train. And if you're a man and your business is going great and you have an okay relationship with your wife, but she's handling all the stuff with the kids, you're not leading. You're maybe leading your business well, but you are not mentoring and discipling your family well. And the best way to get mentorship and discipleship is first go, if you're at a good Bible believing church and they have good elders and deacons, and you can seek out a man. You will notice men that do this well. Go ask them.
mhm,
Humble yourself. Ask them, "How do I do this well?" I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think I'm doing it well.
mhm,
And, an elder, specific to an elder and maybe a deacon would, their job is to then help you there. And
mhm,
so that's what I would say to somebody that just is in this they're listening now and they're going like, "I know I don't do this well." That's where I'd start, but it is your responsibility to begin finding out how to do that well, and that is
mhm,
by leading and teaching and training and making sure your kids um, understand the gospel and understand God's word. If you're just pushing that off to your VBS, well, they went to VBS and they go to Sunday school. I don't
mhm.
know why I do a Southern accent when I do that. I have no idea.
Is that how they talk in Tennessee
Right down the
with the
top.
Sunday school teacher?
Well, here's what I do to teach my kids. I give them, but it's not about just saying prayers at before meals is great. Don't, but does your kids know about a catechism? Do they like the Westminster Catechism? I'll say this. I've been going through it. It's a beautiful thing, and it's an easy thing to go through with your kids to understand the truths of the Bible. It asks questions and gives answers. It's really, really good. But
Mm,
it is your duty as a father to mentor and disciple your kids and your wife.
mhm. Amen. Amen. No, that's I just want to just ditto on that. I know that my most growth has been through some sort of mentorship, some sort of discipleship person in my life, and we people want to. So it's not a burden, like, especially guys that are a little bit more seasoned and they're looking back at the younger generation. Like, they want to do that. If they have a heart for Christ, and they desire to have someone that they can lead and pour into. So I know that I do. I'm getting into that season, right? Then now I'm looking at the younger generation. That's why I'm doing this this thing with my daughter, and we're flipping a house together, and I'm teaching and encouraging and discipling some young kids, and I desire that. I love doing that, and I just think that it's just so important. So having a mentor in your life, but also you're discipling someone as well. Who is that? You should be able, like, you know, to name off, like, oh, I'm really pouring into this person. I'm intentional about discipling this person, and I have someone else that's doing that to me as well. So stewarding relationships, super important. The most important commandment: love your God with all your heart, love people. God is relational. He tells us that relationships are the most important thing. He wants a relationship with us, and he wants you to love and have a relationship with other people. It's the most intentional thing, beyond success, beyond business, beyond finances. It is the most important thing and the most fulfilling thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast today. We're talking about stewardship. We got a couple of more episodes to go on this series of stewardship. Make sure you guys are tuning in to all this entire series at the Iron Deep podcast, also irondeep.com. I would love to meet you. If you're tuning in, you're a regular listener, I would just love to meet you. We have Michael, he's interested in just pouring into people. We have Josh Howard, who's also a co-host on this particular podcast. He's interested in pouring into people. So we would love to meet you, hear your story, and get to know you. And with that, thanks, Michael. That's a wrap.